So you may have heard the name of Thomas Wall as well as Sean Wall, his more famous brother. And I think it's really wonderful that Limerick City and County Council are commemorating Canon Tom Wall, or An Tahar Tomás de Wall as he was known, at the same time as this very important commemoration of Sean Wall and all the others, because Canon Tom Wall, Sean's brother, was a very interesting person in his own right. People may have heard his name mentioned in conjunction with 1916, when Father Tom Wall and Father Michael Hayes were famously defended by the Bishop of Limerick, Bishop O'Dwyer, when General Maxwell wrote to the Bishop and asked him to quieten his rebel priests, as it were. But Father Tom Wall is important for a myriad of reasons, and he was a very interesting person. He was a scholar. He had travelled abroad. He'd been educated after going to Maynooth and studying for the priesthood for a short time. He travelled to Rome and he achieved his doctorate on the continent. So he was a very broad-minded person. And what's really exciting now and most timely is that the diary of Father Tom Wall, which he wrote during the War of Independence, it has re-emerged, carefully minded by the Wall family, by Father Gerard Wall, and then by the Marks family in Adair. And we have that diary now, and really, really special diary, which has been digitised by Limerick City and County Archives. So everybody can have a look at this and read through the diary. This is a wonderful, wonderful first-hand account. It's on the ground, as it were. It's a very simple little diary. Cúntas cín le ó lá bealta na néideag sa néideag go dtí a brán, néideag fethe. It looks simple, and it is simple. Even though it was written by a person who had a doctorate, it's very accessible and it's quite ordinary. And maybe that very ordinary nature of that diary is what makes it interesting for us at a distance of 100 years, that we can travel with Tom Wall, the young priest, as he travels throughout County Limerick and further afield in Munster on his motorbike. And we're, as it were, seeing the War of Independence unfold through his eyes, through his surprised eyes. So that, for example, in one entry, they're very short, simple entries, but in one entry he starts off with, I got a letter from the mayor, Thomas McCurtain, this morning, but by the middle of the day he's heard that the mayor has been shot. And I think for us reading that diary, there's a shock of the new. We get that jolt that people felt at the time when, a little bit like our own era, the world was turned upside down and the everyday became very strange and threatening. So we have, as the diary goes on, this sense of threat, this sense of a people being under siege. There are searches. He's being called out as a priest to minister when people are shot, when bodies are found on the road. And there are references as well to events that are familiar to us through the wonderful work of our own Limerick historians. So, for example, there was shooting in Ward's Hotel in Rathkeale. He meets a man on the road to Rathkeale and he hears about this. And again, there's that just life brought to the cold facts of history that maybe we're familiar with when we read it day by day in this beautiful little diary written in Irish by Father Tom Wall. And we get glimpses as well of Father Tom's personality. He was a sociable person, clearly very well liked, very involved with the people. Every week there were multiple meetings. He's going to meetings of Connor na Gaeilge. And of course Father Wall was immersed in the Irish language, very well known as an Irish language scholar, a collector of manuscripts and a publisher of scholarly articles on the Irish language here in County Limerick and further afield. And what's really lovely about this diary as well, and that I found very compelling, is this sense of, in very simple ways, a sense of the everyday life of Tomás de Wall, or Father Tom Wall. Sometimes he works in his garden. He's often visited. His great friend is Father Michael Hayes, whom he visits often. But as well, he's among the people. He's practicing plays in the hall in Drumculloher, and he's ministering to his flock. And as time goes on, you can feel his own shock. He often says "Slán mar an inchtere," when something terrible happens. And I think he's shocked as well, when policemen are killed, though clearly his sympathy is with the volunteers. But he finds the times he's living in very terrible. And by all accounts, he was a very gentle man. And a person who was very broad-minded, and I suppose with a friendship here where we are right now in Ballingarry. His very close friend was the Protestant minister. They used to go on long walks together. And it's really special to be able to hold as an artefact this little diary. We don't have other diaries from him, so he clearly realised that he was living in historic, momentous times, and he decided to write his day-by-day account. And we get other incidental insights into County Limerick at the time as well. For example, he can travel everywhere by rail. He hops on the train to places in County Limerick that are not accessible by train today. And he's going everywhere on his motorbike. And he's meeting people on his journey. People tend to be bumping into each other. It seems to be a slower time where news often comes by word of mouth. We're not in today's instant access to news, and he hears from his neighbours about these happenings, and they start off, often there's a rumour, and then the next day he says, oh, it was only a rumour. So we have again this insight into what it felt like at the time. From our standpoint, we have the facts, but at that time everything was very unclear and people didn't know what was coming. There were all these searches going on and this sense of threat. Along with that then, there's the whole cultural life of County Limerick, the cooperative movement and Conor na Gaeilge, which he was very involved with. He was, of course, the first president of the Irish Language Association of the Catholic Priests in Ireland, Cumann na Sagart. And, he has that leadership role. And it's very discernible from the diary where he's addressing meetings, he's giving talks, and people are drawn towards him as a minister of the flock, but also as a cultural leader. And as I said, it's a very simple diary, but there aren't many first-hand day-by-day accounts of this era, of the War of Independence. And I am just overjoyed that Limerick Archives have taken this diary and the whole collection through the generosity of the Marks and Wall family, and that will be safeguarded now and made available to the people of Limerick and to scholars from further afield. And it's a very, very appropriate and wonderful commemoration, I suppose, for the future generations, that they will have this insight into these turbulent and exciting times. And along with this diary, I suppose the whole collection complements the diary and the other artefacts that we have. In Father Tom Wall's personal collection, there are lots of Irish language songbooks, there are scripts of plays, for example. We get a real sense of the man and of, I suppose, the energy that was in the Irish language movement in County Limerick at that time.